His name is Robert Murray. He has a reputation around the baseball community for breaking stories related to contracts and stuff that comes from agents. There's a reason for that. He communicates with agents. He doesn't cover baseball in a conventional way, doesn't go to games, doesn't do that kind of stuff. Just talks to agents. So he shared something yesterday that he, of course, would have heard from agents, and it's all wrong. And I feel kind of obligated to clear it up, although I don't usually enjoy doing that. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way every weekday, bright and early. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins in the same place that you found this. What Murray, I don't know if you can call it reported, he talked about it on a podcast. And again, because this guy does break news from talking to these agents, some are going to pay attention. This was the exact quote from Murray on this show where he was talking about free agents and so forth. And he said, quote, especially guys who are going to be signed cheap, because I do not believe the Pirates have a lot of payroll flexibility. I think it's pretty minimal. So it's going to force Ben Cherington and that front office to be creative. I don't want to use the phrase bargain bin shopping, but kind of not far off. It's really discouraging because if you look at that team, they have so many different ingredients to be a very good team, end quote. What's really discouraging here is the trash reporting, okay? Let me just say it like it is. That's trash reporting. If you ever, as a reporter, are using phrases like I believe or I do not believe or I think, that's trash, okay? Take that from somebody who's been in journalism for a lifetime. If this guy tried this at an actual outlet, including any of the outlets at which I'd worked, including the one I currently co-own with my wife, he'd be gone. Just like that. Now, here's what else is trash about that. It's not true. Listen, nobody, since this season came to an end, the 2024 season, has been more critical of Bob Nutting than I have. I have openly, publicly, vocally called for him to sell the team. I have openly, publicly, vocally called for him to fire his entire front office and his on-field staff. So I'm not sharing this as some sort of defense mechanism or whatever. I couldn't care less. The Pirates would be an infinitely healthier franchise if Nutting sold the team by the time you finish hearing the rest of this show. All right? We have that part clear? Okay, cool. Here's what's also true. Payroll is going up to $100 million. I'm not guessing at this. I know this. And I've been told this by people who have absolutely nothing to gain from telling me this, because if it doesn't happen, then it's just going to be more blowback. Payroll finished the season at $83 million. It goes up to $100. So that's an additional $17 million. Now you can say, oh, that's not a lot. They should be spending more. Yes, they should still be spending more. But when you take $17 million and then you factor in probably not bringing back Aroldis Chapman, now you're at $27 million. Rowdy Tellez is gone, $30 million. You see where I'm going here? And for the most part, you still have a roster where some of your most talented guys, certainly your most talented guy, are working for minimum wage. And I happen to think this is just an opinion, not reporting. I'm not sure I'd go and get a starting pitcher. So what are we talking about here? Because starting pitchers are really expensive, but I'd rather see the opening day roster have Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, Luis Ortiz, and fill in the blank. If that's Bubba Chandler, awesome. If it's not, it can be Bailey Falter, whatever. A number 5 starter is a number 5 starter. You wouldn't overpay for that under any circumstance. So what you're talking about here as a need to spend on is, what are the two positions we talked about on the show yesterday? Right field and first base. Right field and first base. So if you want to get yourself a right fielder and a first baseman, and you've got $30 million sitting around, you can buy yourself a whole lot of right fielder and a whole lot of first baseman. So what this guy said which unfortunately is going to make it all around. And it's going to be another one of those situations where, well, let me put it this way. If I sound irritated about this, it's not just because I get irritated by shoddy journalism or whatever that exercise was actually intended to be. I get irritated when people talk about the wrong thing or the wrong problem. And all something like this does is get everybody talking about payroll again. And as you heard from this guy's context, he's excusing Cherington in advance, as if Cherington hasn't already blown tens of millions of dollars on nothing players, delivering nothing results. Have you ever seen the list of Cherington's free agents? And don't excuse him by saying they were on the cheap, because he can go and get one really good player instead of spreading it all over creation on a bunch of nobodies. And that's exactly what he's done. And on those handful of occasions when he's attempted to get one really good player, even at mid-range prices, he's failed. He's failed miserably. They went after Rowdy Tellez right off the bat in free agency because their analytics people told Cherington, this is the guy, this is the target. He hit 35 home runs in Milwaukee 2 years ago. We're going to resurrect him. Andy Haynes is going to fix him. And they let Carlos Santana walk. That's so dumb. I can't even come up with cogent analysis for it. But that's also not a payroll issue, because Carlos barely cost any more than Tellez did. But people will talk about payroll, even when it's completely incorrect. Ugh, this team, this whole subject. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragechek.org. That's gunstoragechek.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Paul, who asks, DK, can you ask Brian Reynolds if he's considering playing first base? I remember Derek Shelton saying they asked him to improve his arm strength going into last year. He responded by tying with the most outfield assists in the league. If Brian plays first, you can put Billy Cook in left, and the defense between him and O'Neal Cruz should be very good. Put Nick York in right, which should improve the outfield defense. Dude, these two guys haven't had anything more than a cup of coffee. I love you, Paul. I'm not knocking. Your question is actually, your base question is actually a really, really good one. But I'm not into projecting how prospects who are property of the Pirates are going to do in the majors in any kind of glowing terms, for the simple reason that they fail, or at the least they tend to fail. I think that's a fairer assessment, but they really do. They really do. And the ones who have made it are either a baseball god like Paul Skeens, or they were acquired from some other organization, meaning even as prospects. Now, you can say that about Cook and York. Yeah, they came from other organizations, so they've at least got a prayer. But penciling them in as starters, wow, no, I'm not doing that. Now, as far as, what did you ask me to ask Reynolds what he thinks of playing first base? Reynolds doesn't have a super strong opinion on stuff like that. If you know anything about Reynolds, even just from watching, TV interviews or whatever, or stuff that we put on our website, he's a pretty even-keeled guy. He's not going to be moved by too much. Now, you might also know that in September, they had Reynolds doing some work at first base, but even in the moment, Shelton downplayed that as saying, we occasionally have guys all over just to keep them from getting bored or whatever. It doesn't mean anything. And I'll be honest with you, I'd be really, really surprised if it ends up meaning something, because Reynolds has given you everything he's got in the outfield. He's not exactly an old dude. And I understand that the Pirates management people are comfortable wearing clown shoes, but if you tell your best player your best everyday player that, oh, we value you so much and go ahead and work on your arm strength. And he comes back and does exactly the thing that you did. And then just a few months later, tell him, have you ever thought about first base? You know, a position where you won't need your arm at all. Then they deserve whatever hell would fall upon them for that. So there, how's that for an answer? I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. It's insane that you do so, but we'll be back with another one tomorrow.